Hey, welcome to What's the Tea, the TransLink Podcast. I'm your host, John Jang, and on this episode, we're going to make Bob proud.
Up the builder, can we build it? Up the builder, yes we can!
So what exactly are we building? Let's find out and tap in to What's the Tea.
The next station is
Welcome to What's the Tea, the TransLink Podcast.
On our last episode, we talked about some of the new and exciting plans we have at TransLink aimed at making your commuting experience easier and more reliable. Things like the Burnaby Gondola project, the SkyTrain extension to UBC, and pursuing a bus-based approach in our long-term regional strategy on transportation. But those aren't the only things we're planning and developing. After all, Metro Vancouver is a beautiful part of the world, and we're growing.
Hello, Canada. Your chief statistician here. I'm pleased to report that we are now 40 million Canadians. What an exciting milestone for our country.
Additional supply depots required.
A rising population comes with all sorts of opportunities and challenges. More people come here to fill more jobs, and that brings more tax revenue. But people also need places to live and services for them and their loved ones.
Well, more and more people are coming to Vancouver, and some projections show that about 1 million more people will be calling Metro Vancouver home by 2050. All of those people will need housing and recreation centers and schools and other infrastructure.
And with 50,000 newcomers moving into the region every year, further investment in transit is vital to ensure that we can not only maintain, but expand critically needed services now and into the future.
There are two important things to keep in mind. Number one, as we now know, TransLink's funding model requires creative adjustments. With more fuel-efficient or fully electric cars on the road, the fuel tax, which makes up roughly 20% of TransLink funding, is a declining revenue source. And number two, we need more housing, especially as our population in Metro Vancouver continues to grow. On the outside, it's easy to look at this and think, those are two big problems. But inside TransLink, our experts call this an opportunity.
So it just makes a lot of sense for TransLink to be engaging in real estate development.
This is Sabrina Hamidullah, Director of Real Estate Development at TransLink. Sabrina and her team have the important job of transforming this idea and opportunity into reality, building transit-oriented developments and creating a new revenue stream for the company. What is TransLink doing in trying to get into real estate development here?
Well, from my perspective, it's a long time coming. But yeah, most people, when you say real estate or I say I'm at TransLink and I'm doing real estate development, they're like, what? What are you talking about? So really, people will say a good transportation plan is a good land use plan. And I think that's where our real estate development program kind of comes in. So the idea, I'm going to get philosophical here, like the idea that people congregate and settle near major modes of transit has been something that's kind of happened since the beginning of time. You look at, railway stations, that's where cities and city centers were kind of born. And so the same is with our major transit stations, the idea that we should focus development and people and jobs and, all kinds of uses right at our transit stations is something that really is kind of the ethos behind the development program.
One of the things that, of course, we have to focus on is like the first development from your team, your baby, if you will. So please announce what is probably one of the most exciting things you're working on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I am so proud of TransLink, everybody involved, our team. We only just got our mandate in April last year, and to be where we are right now with the Broadway Arbutus project in terms of not only having a partnership, but having a concept and a plan that we're already sharing with the public is really, really awesome. So the Broadway Arbutus project is a property that came into our portfolio, was originally acquired for the Broadway subway station. It was not required, so it fell into our portfolio. And it's a smallish property, so we were very lucky to find a development partner just next door with PCI. So the plan there is for us to bring our properties together. Our proposal is for a 30-story mixed-use development comprising of market rental, amazing. It'll have 20% below market units, amazing. Just really going to animate that intersection. The 99 bus will start there, so there'll be a lot of students there. So it's going to be a really vibrant area. That's where our station will be. So we will have retail at grade. There is a bus nearby, a bus route, the Greenway. So it's an incredible site, and we're so excited to have a development concept there, one that brings so many things together, one that realizes the investment the province is making in the Broadway subway plan by seeing high-rise mixed-use development happening right at its doorstep.
I suppose then, like, the next follow-up question would be like, why is TransLink doing this? Is it a matter of just doing it now because the opportunity strikes, or was there maybe a bigger reason for that?
There are so many reasons. This program, although I said in the beginning, it's a long time coming, the mandate was officially, ushered in, approved by Mayor's Council, TransLink Board. It became official early last year. So many things leading up to that. One of them is revenue generation for TransLink. So as you know, and I know, TransLink as the regional authority for Vancouver is responsible for funding its own expansion. And TransLink is very innovative in looking for new ways to do that don't burden our taxpayers. And real estate development was one of those ideas. We do own real estate in the system. And the idea was, this is prime property for creating these spaces that people want to live, and that this is something that we can unlock for revenue generation for TransLink. The idea being that all the benefits would be rolled right back into the transit system to help us grow, to help us, again, meet the demands of our growing base that we have here in terms of commuters. So revenue generation, certainly a driving factor. I really believe we're being fiscally responsible when we do that. We take our existing assets and leverage them to be able to create value, not just monetary, but lots of other value, lots of other benefits that we'll talk about. And then also just when you do development, we hope through our program to really enhance our transit service, our transit offerings, and it really also brings forward the Metro Vancouver's regional growth strategy.
When we look at TransLink getting into real estate, I think it's exciting. To your point, a lot of great benefits to come through once all of that is realized and, we start getting those homes constructed and everything. That's great. How does TransLink, and maybe this is more of a narrative on Metro Vancouver, how do we compare with other cities around North America? Are other cities and agencies in Canada doing the same thing? Maybe we look at places in maybe California, Washington State. Like, is this sort of groundbreaking, or are we following a precedent?
I have been hearing and learning about transit-oriented development is a terminology that goes way back. But as of now, it is, you can pick up like an urban planning or a transit kind of magazine without reading about transit-oriented development. So it is happening at a pace and a scale that we haven't seen before. And when I say transit-oriented development, that could be delivered by the private sector. Mostly that's where we've seen it come from. It is something that now public agencies around the world are getting into, like TfL in London, Transport for London. They have a huge real estate development program. Of course, everybody knows about Hong Kong and MTR and how they've really leveraged real estate to really fund. Like it is how they fund their system. So it's very different around the world. It's happening in Toronto. It's happening in Montreal. It's happening now in Vancouver as well.
Let's take this opportunity to once again just put things into perspective. What are the operational benefits for TransLink getting into real estate development, and how does it impact you, the customer? For that, we go to another Scoop with Coop. Here's our friend David Cooper, the principal at Leading Mobility Consulting.
So I'm quite excited about TransLink's announcement on this, partially because, one, we do have a housing affordability crisis in several cities across Canada, and it really shows the leadership of a transit agency to really evolve its mandate beyond of the transport of people, but also its ability to leverage housing outcomes on transit sites. I'll walk a little bit through a project that we're doing right now. The Canadian Urban Transit Association is doing a project that I'm leading where we're looking at how do you maximize these housing outcomes and development outcomes at transit stations, because transit stations usually have a lot of infrastructure components and a lot of land. One of the complex pieces that we have when we look at our stations is that Sometimes you'll have large park and ride sites where you typically have them where people will drive to a transit station, usually a rapid transit station, to connect to the transit system to go on to other modes and other destinations. If you look at places like Toronto, the largest parking provider in Ontario is actually Go Transit. And it's like big parking lots around the transit stations. And there's these huge opportunities to help lift up ridership for those who rely on transit by building housing and these developments on transit sites, so that one, we capture the riders to increase revenue, and two, lessen the burden on the rest of the transit system to ferry people in.
What makes these projects generally successful, though, David? You mentioned the increased revenue. That makes a lot of sense when you're also trying to take a big picture look at funding revenues and funding models for transportation agencies all across North America and maybe even the world for that matter.
So these projects are successful when you have, the right densities, the right mixes of uses, the attractiveness when it comes to the real estate market for your people to purchase these units. What's very favorable for TransLink is the real estate market has shown that there is a high rate that people will pay and want to have to be close to transit. If you go down the Millennium Line, you'll see things like Brentwood Town Center. You'll see on the Expo Line, Metrotown. You'll see a lot of growth we're seeing around Lougheed. I think we'll have a lot of success because it's actually a highly integrated, connected part of our region with the transit system. But also there's a lot of other components and uses around that particular area. So TransLink can help build out and complete that community by providing also that increased access to housing that many are looking for, and many see the value and the amenity of that.
Convenient access to public transportation, a network of amenities and infrastructure created for the purpose of building communities and encouraging growth in a population that would theoretically be relying less on driving to get from point A to point B. That is the long-term payoff when talking about transit-oriented developments. All right, let's go finish our chat with Sabrina.
I always remind everybody that we are building the future. So we have to think about now, we have to think about near future, and then we have to think about the long-term future. So we need to come up with, if we're planning a neighborhood, like a small community, we need to think about developing something that is robust and resilient in terms of being able to grow with the population. So we consider the long-term needs of the growing population demands and the long-term transit needs. And we really bake that into our thinking in terms of master planning a site, or, if it's a smaller site, how can we make that very transit friendly? So that is a constant consideration, and we will be working to develop our visions and our plans.
So given that this is a new program, really groundbreaking stuff that you and your team are doing currently to, again, advance what people want to see out of not just TransLink, but I would, agree with you, Metro Vancouver just as a whole. How is TransLink getting into that? And what is the process like maybe working with partners? Because I imagine this is something you need to have lots of conversations with so many people from maybe government, from other sectors, trying to make sure TransLink is able to do this.
Yeah. How are we going to get into that? Well, I would say that we're well positioned. First of all, everybody wants this. So every municipality that we have spoken to, everybody's about time, please, start, what can we do? Where are your we'll give you shovels, get started already. So there's a huge amount of support for this. I would say, from the public, from the cities, from the private industry as well. So that's fantastic. And then internally in our organization, we have so much expertise. We're writing the book on traffic demand management. The expertise is in-house. The inspiration in terms of developing transport communities, a lot of that, the excellence is within our own organization. And in terms of partnerships, it happens in various stages. Earlier on in our planning, we're engaging the best, brightest, most innovative minds to help us with this planning work. World class. We're really looking for global expertise in terms of the consultant support that we'll be getting. So that's early stages. But when it comes to delivering these projects, we do envision that we're going to be partnering with the private sector. Again, it's a beautiful way of leveraging what everybody does best. We're bringing what we do best to the table. We're inviting private sector to partner up with us and do what they do best. They're developers who've been in this game for so long, know how to manage risk and financing and funding. So we're bringing it all together, and everybody's bringing something of value to the table, and that's how our partnerships will be coming forward. A question that we may be asked is how will we be selecting partners? So it will be on a project by project basis, and it'll be a transparent process, probably a competitive process in terms of how we select those partners when the time is right to do so. So we're bringing opportunities up to a point where they are ready so that we can then do partnerships.
And how does this all sort of weave into like the big long-term company strategies, things like Transport 2050 and all of that? I suppose like all of it kind of works hand in hand to, as you say, accelerate things like transit-oriented communities.
Yeah, it's actually very well aligned. So the Transport T50, the Metro Regional Growth Strategy, they're so aligned in terms of visionary and in terms of bringing mass transit and population growth and density together. In terms of how we are how the development program will actually realize those goals and aspirations. We believe that with it, we're providing people options in terms of being able to make a choice, to be able to live close to a transit station, to be able to walk, to cycle, to take transit, and to ride share. And we're also, TransLink is also responsible for the major road network. So we are also thinking about our commuters and drivers as well. So we are considering everybody and just trying to create better choices. So I think by creating those choices, people can opt to live closer to transit. So that helps with our sustainability goals. It helps with carbon emissions. It helps with our ridership, and the revenue generation helps as well. As I said, that will help therefrom growing more transit as well and more services and expansions.
TransLink is breaking ground with its real estate development program to generate new long-term revenue, which will be reinvested into the region's transportation system. As the region continues to grow, welcoming up to 50,000 new residents annually, we need to provide people with sustainable ways to move and live. It's a lot like I said, blending the need for new revenue streams with the need for more housing doesn't have to be a problem, but rather an opportunity. My thanks to Sabrina Hamidullah for a wonderful conversation on real estate development, and David Cooper for another Scoop with Coop, always painting that big picture on these issues. My thanks to producer Alan, who's the brains of this operation, and also to you for listening and subscribing. I've been your host, John Jang. Until next time, have a safe trip.